I now have the pleasure of introducing our Convocation speaker this afternoon, our very own Chancellor, Dr. Don Tapscott, also, by the way, from the class of '66. Don Tapscott is CEO of the Tapscott Group and is one of the world's leading authorities on the impact of technology on business and society. He has authored 16 books, including Wikinomics, How Mass Collaboration Changes Everything, which has been translated into over 25 languages. Don's most recent and ambitious book was co-authored with his son, startup CEO and Bitcoin governance expert Alex Tapscott. The Blockchain Revolution, How the Technology Underlying Bitcoin is Changing Business, Money, and the World, was published in May 2016. In 2017, Don and Alex co-founded the Blockchain Research Institute to conduct the definitive investigation into blockchain technology, strategy, use cases, implementation challenges, and organizational transformations. Don is a member of the Order of Canada and is ranked the second most influential management thinker and the #1 digital thinker in the world by Thinkers 50. It's hard to imagine anyone who has been more prolific, profound, and influential in explaining today's technological revolutions and their impact on the world. Don, I would like to note, is in his second term as our Chancellor and is the first alumnus to serve in that distinguished role. He's an alumni leader and philanthropic champion of Trent, supporting many projects, including the Student Center and the recently transformed Bata Library. Mr. Chancellor, it's my privilege to invite you to address Convocation.
Well, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman of the Board, graduates, friends, and family, heartfelt congratulations to each of you and to those who share in your success. I am an alumnus of Trent University, this wonderful institution, and like you graduates, I took the road less traveled, and for me, it has made all the difference. And for all of us, a river did run through it. This is the end of my second term as Chancellor, and I will be retiring after this series of convocations. And I must tell you that the last 6 years of being your Chancellor has been one of the greatest honors and most rewarding experiences of my life. So to all of you in the Trent community, you have my heartfelt thanks. I'd like to also acknowledge some other special guests. I do want to repeat that it's a great honor for me to be presiding over this particular session and to have the founding president of Trent, Tom Simons, listening in. And I think we should, if you will, give another round of applause for Professor Simons. I'd also like to acknowledge my wife of 36 years, Anna Lopez, and my brothers, Bob and Bill, who are both graduates from Trent, and my sister, Kathy, who was the youngest of 4 boys that went to Trent, of 5 children that went to Trent, she was the youngest of 5 children, 4 of them who went to Trent, and she unwisely chose to go somewhere else. So nevertheless, she's had a very distinguished career in life. And of course, I'd like to say thanks to the class of '66, arguably the greatest class ever of Trent. And so I'd like to, many of you are business graduates, and I'd like to take this opportunity to share some unconventional advice drawing from the experience of my own life as a Trent graduate. And I'll tell you a story that I haven't really told before, but in the late 1970s, I was hired as a researcher at Bell Northern Research, BNR, which is Canada's Bell Labs, in Toronto. And I didn't really know anything about technology, but I got the job because of the expertise and capability I had acquired at Trent and also in my graduate work as a researcher and as a thinker and writer. And it was really the psych department at Trent that got me going on that. And our group at B&R was trying to figure out how inter-networked computers used by professionals and managers could change knowledge work and the nature of organizations. Now you have to remember, back then, it's the late 70s, the only people that used computers were programmers. And a manager wouldn't touch a keyboard. And our group conducted the first ever controlled experiments about the impact of technology on knowledge work. So we gave half the office work the old way with telephones, typing pools, manual calendars, filing cabinets, the corporate library for information, and so on. And the other half had computers on their desks connected to digital networks. It was very radical. And they use a suite of tools that look a lot like Microsoft Office today. We had to build it then. Electronic mail, word processing, document co-authoring, management, information retrieval, personal time managing, calendaring, and financial planning tools. Spreadsheets would not be invented for another 5 years. And we found that the group with the technology performed better, and they had more fun. And we concluded that computers were going to go beyond data processing and be used by everyone as communications tools. And I was very fortunate to end up there, as this work that we were doing was 15 years ahead of its time. Now, I wrote a book about that experience in 1981, and unfortunately, it did not sell well. I think my mother was responsible for many of the purchases. And critics said that only programmers would use computers and secretaries because regular people would never learn to type. Regardless, I was on the executive fast track. I'd received 4 promotions in 2 years, and I was running the entire division of the company from my massive corner office. And I was 1 step away from getting an office with a private washroom, which was huge. Now, even though our ideas didn't have broad acceptance, I was doing well. I was a rising star in the company, and I was highly regarded among the initial people who thought about this stuff. Which is why it seemed so weird to me when a colleague named Dell Langdon tried to convince me to quit the company and become an entrepreneur with her. She was working there as well. It was circa 1982 by then. It was in the middle of a brutal recession, and I was about to launch a family, and Anna was pregnant. And here I had this colleague argue that we should take a dozen people away from B&R and set up a company to help people implement a new class of technology that didn't even exist yet. And in fact, when we did leave the company, the IBM PC was not yet on the market, and it would be a full decade before PCs even communicated properly with each other. So her advice seemed nuts, but something caused me to listen. And with the advantage of hindsight, I can kind of reflect on my reasons. That they were unarticulated at the time. But basically, we wanted to get control of our destiny. We wanted to share in the wealth we created. And most of all, we wanted the freedom to do big things and to try and change the world. Among other things, to create technology that would transform the way that people worked and learned and communicated. We were partially successful. We consulted to companies and governments. My brother Bob was an executive at a big bank, and he was one of our first clients. We wrote a book which together had not much better sales than the previous one, and we built a system that was eventually acquired. Now, this didn't exactly bring us wealth, but it led to more good things. Eventually, we lost control of the company, and that chapter ended unhappily. But the legacy was a great one, including that all our colleagues went on to do very interesting things. I ended up writing my first bestseller, a book called Paradigm Shift, and Leo mentioned some of the others over the years. They've been many of the big books about business and technology. And today I do feel very fortunate. I'm the master of my own destiny. I have a prosperous and purposeful life beyond my early dreams, and I'm so fortunate to have a lifelong marriage, 2 wonderful children, and now 3 beautiful grandchildren, and a broad network of friends. And I'm the Chancellor of Trent University. Boom. So, let me share, it's kind of a long story, but I want to share some lessons from that. And they really go against conventional wisdom. You may not agree with all of this, but it may even jar you. Call them the 7 truths that highly successful professionals should ignore and upend, okay? Number 1, most of you probably think you'll spend your professional life in a business career and a job, and your task is to go get a job. I'd like to argue to you that you consider setting up your own business. Now, of course, you may want to get a job in a big organization first, and some experience in a large organization is very valuable. But the turning point in my professional life was when I left the executive track. I took a leap of faith, as Dr. Alice Klein described this morning in her speech accepting an honorary doctorate. And I became an entrepreneur, and more people are going to make this choice. This is the #1 source of new jobs in Canada. And today, you have these powerful new tools like, well, the internet. For you people in the audience, talk to your kids, they'll explain that. But other emerging technologies like blockchain and Internet of Value, artificial intelligence. Many of you will fail, as I did, several times, but for more, the experience will be worth it. Number 2, don't seek work-life balance. Do what you love. You see, your day should not be divided between work and having a life. Find or make work that's meaningful and enjoyable. And when off work, spend some time doing something purposeful and productive, maybe in your community. At Bell Northern Research, we look forward to every day. We were passionate about it, and I remain excited about what I do today. And I'll just tell you a story. I was doing a day-long session with the top executives of one of the biggest companies in the world. And we brought in a panel of young people, millennials. And one of the executives asked this group, what could we do to make our company more attractive for your generation? And this young woman, without missing a beat, stood up and she said, well, you should make this place more fun. It's just not fun to work here. And all the executives are looking at her like, fun? What is she talking about? You know, because we have this view that there's a period in your day when you work and a period in your day where you have fun, or a period worse, a period in your life where you work and then you get to retire and then you get to have fun if you don't have a stroke or something. So, and by fun, she didn't mean, you know, a party. She meant it should be meaningful, collaborative, integrated with learning, and solving meaningful problems. You can be the generation to transform the nature of work and end this dichotomy. Number 3, you've studied management, and you may aspire to be a good manager. I would recommend you don't do that. Don't be a good manager, be a great leader. It was Peter Drucker, the greatest management thinker of all time, who said years ago that stable times require excellence and good managers. But as we transition to a new age, our organization need more than management, they need leadership. Rather than managing the status quo, lead the change. Think of yourself primarily as a leader. Of course you do management. That's the way we did at Bell Northern Research. These times don't require tinkering with organizations. They require deep innovation and transformation. Number 4, don't ever graduate. Parents, don't freak out on me here, okay? Be a lifelong learner. Parents, I'm not suggesting that your children, stay in school forever, but that they take the time to develop a strategy for lifelong learning. and also to be informed as a citizen for life. Develop a strategy for learning as an innovator, a leader, a professor, a parent, whatever you're doing. And for a citizen, society needs informed participants. Knowledge is exploding around you, and you need to commit to reinventing your knowledge base multiple times throughout life. What you know is important, but it's not important as your capability to think and put things into context and to collaborate and research and communicate. And these are the things that will really matter, and you will transform your knowledge base multiple times. Number 5, we're getting really radical here. Don't seek happiness. Live a purposeful life. You know, this is a tough one. We all want to be happy, but in my experience, happiness has been a byproduct of living a purposeful life that's rich with meaningful relationships. In the decades ahead, you're going to see unthinkable, staggering changes in the world. And you'll be more fulfilled and happier if you participate fully in these transformations rather than stand by on the sidelines. And build a deep network of loved ones, and happiness will result. Number 6, don't wish for good luck. Be ready for your big break. For me, good fortune has always come at the intersection of preparation and opportunity. And my Trent degree and other studies prepared me, and I was open to an opportunity when it came knocking. I arrived in Toronto with no job, and I got 2 opportunities as a psychologist. One was to do testing of students in the Scarborough School Board, and the other was to head a group at Bell Northern Research trying to figure out how the internet would change the world. And I didn't get the school psychologist job. But I was prepared, and an opportunity came along. And you are similarly prepared. I have no doubt that each of you will find your own path to prosperity. And what an amazing time to graduate. Number 7, business is all about creating shareholder value, right? Number 7, don't build shareholder value. Cultivate all stakeholders. I think the best way to create value for shareholders is to build it for customers and employees and the communities within which you operate. As you enter the workforce, you'll have the best tools for innovating, engaging all stakeholders, and building new businesses. So think about everyone that matters, not just the business owners. And I think that this is true even if you're the business owner. The data shows that you will be successful, and your Trent degree has equipped you for that. You will all do well. So, live long and prosper, as Spock would say. Build a prosperous life for yourselves and your family. But let me conclude today that humanity needs more than that from you. You see, the world that you're entering is full of opportunity, but as a business person and a citizen, you will face growing challenges. The crisis of climate change, the declining legitimacy of democracy, trade wars are looming. Leaders of institutions everywhere have lost the public trust. Massive corporations are capturing our data, the new asset class of the digital age, and undermining our privacy while they enrich themselves. That's not a radical point of view, it's a fact. And we need to recover our digital identities so that we can manage all this data responsibly for ourselves, and not just for them. And for the first time in modern history, we have wealth creation but declining prosperity. Our economies are growing, but the middle class is stalled or shrinking. And the global economy is unstable and the world is deeply divided. I believe that businesses can't succeed in a world that's failing. And your generation is being called forth by history to ensure that the smaller world that your children and grandchildren inherit is a prosperous one, a just one, and a sustainable one. And you can participate in changing your workplace, your community, and your country as a global citizen. You can teach your children well, as your parents have clearly taught you. And you must exercise your precious right to vote. It's such a simple thing. And people your age are fighting for this, and some dying for this right that you have. This is a precious and rare thing in the world today. And wherever you are, design your life. Live the values of your generation, which are good values, and I've studied you. Don't be anxious. You'll look back on today as a time where you had developed the initial tools to create a full life that's purposeful, that's transformational, and that's consequential. So, once again, congratulations to all of you. I hope that you'll think beyond the traditional paradigm and assumptions about business today. Dream big. Make a difference. Yesterday, I conferred an honorary doctorate on Michael Cook, the former editor of the Toronto Star and now the head of Journalists for Human Rights. And he said to the convocating class, don't just make a living, make your mark. My hope for you is that each of you will live a principled life of consequence. Godspeed.